friends, welcome to my YouTube class Echo Aftab. In my today's session, we are going to understand a very small concept, and that is vectors. Myself Aftab Bhai. Let us start with what is the meaning of vectors. Friends, a vector is defined as a mathematical structure. Now, what do you mean by structure? You will understand when I will show you the graphical representation of vectors. A vector is an object that has both magnitude and direction. So, this is what is vector. You can say geometrically a vector can be picturized as a directed line segment. As you can see, this line segment is giving direction. So, it is called as directed line segment. Normally, vectors are denoted using arrows, as you can see over here. So, here we are having a vector V. How will we come to know that it is vector? Because of this particular arrow on top. This shows that it is an vector. A vector is a Latin word that means carrier. So, carrier of what? Carrier of one point to another point. Vector carry point A to point B. This is what is vector. So, we can say even this is a vector, this is also a vector. So, what do you mean by vector? It is a directed line segment where that arrow is pointed. How long is the arrow? That is what magnitude. How long? Direction. It is pointed towards in which direction. This is vectors. Now, you may ask me why this topic of vectors, as we have started with matrices, and in matrices we spoke about row vector and column vector. So, for us to understand these vectors, I have taken up this small topic. So, going ahead, we shall see with an example what these vectors are. If I say vector A is equal to 3 1, so this is the vector. So, what is this 3? This 3 is telling us about the values in the x axis, and the y is telling us about the values in the y axis. Similarly, the same information can be written in the form of matrices. So, this is a column vector, this is a column vector. So, both signifies the same thing. Now, how we can present a vector, or you can say matrix A in a graph. So, here we are having a graph with x axis and y axis. So, there are the numbers on the right hand side, positive numbers, on the left hand side negative numbers, similarly on y axis. So, for our convenience, I have just taken the grid lines. Now, we will see what will happen to this A vector or A matrix when we want to picturize it. So, this is the vertex point of origin. So, here as A is the value has 3 for x in A vector, then I will just move from point 0 towards point 3. So, this is the x moment, and then the next one is y. So, x we have moved to 3 points. Now, y we need to move upwards by 1 point. This is y. So, when you connect the points on origin with this particular point of coordinates, we get a vector. So, here the vector has two parts, the tail, the bottom part, and the head, which is showing the arrow. So, this is our vector. As I told you, the length of the line between the 2 points T and H, this length from this particular point to this particular point, this length is called as magnitude of the vector, and the direction of the displacement, matlab from where, from point T to point H, if it is moving, in which direction is this points moving, that is what is called as direction of the vector. So here normally in definition we say point A to B, in our graph it is point T to H. So vector is the carrier that carries point T up till point H. So this is the meaning of vector. I hope it is clear. Now friends, let us see about what if there are two vectors, addition of vectors. Addition of vectors. So I will take one more vector, vector B, or I can say I will take one more column vector in the form of matrices B is equal to 1, 2. Now here again the same logic will apply. So I need to move x axis by 1 unit and 2 axis I need to move up by 2 units. So 1 unit of x and upwards 2 units towards y. So this will give us the second vector, and again here you can see this is the tail and this is the head of vector B. So this is our A vector and this is our B vector. So we are having two vectors. Now if you want to add these two vectors, vector A and vector B, what will we get? So here friends, vector A plus vector B, it is simply adding the x's. So 3 plus 1, 4, 1 plus 2 is 3. So we will get a new vector which with the dimensions of 4 and 3. So this is our addition of vectors. Now we shall see how it will look in the same way in matrices as we had studied A plus B. If you want to add it up, what will we get? 3 plus 1, 4 and 1 plus 2, 3. So this is our new column vector that we have got when we add two row, two column vectors. The same thing in the form of the picture, how it looks. So friends, you can see what I am doing. I am just shifting the B vector tail and touching it to the A vector's head. So the tail of B vector, I am just shifting it to the head of A vector. So this shift is giving us the new vector, and what is the new vector? You can see the pink line that is touching from the origin to the head of the B vector. So friends, this has a name. It is called as triangle law of addition of vectors. So what this signifies is, the law states that if two sides of a triangle represent two vectors, so which are the two sides? One is this particular side A and this is the another side B. So if two sides, first side A vector and second side B vector of a triangle represent two vectors both in magnitude and direction, then the third side of the triangle, this is the third side. The third side of the triangle represents the resultant vector. What do you mean by resultant vector? So the new vector that we have got by adding the two vectors, vector A and vector B. So this is one law, triangle law of addition of vectors. Similarly, there is one more law, and what is that law called as? That law is called as parallelogram law of addition of vectors. And friends, this is what I want to highlight. This is what I want to tell you about parallelogram. The reason for me taking up vectors is to tell what is parallelogram, because this parallelogram will help us in understanding the concept of determinants in matrices and determinants. My next topic is determinants. So this is just a prequel for us to understand what do you mean by determinants. Now friends, these two matrices A and B, I can write it like this also: 3, 1, 1, 2. So this is, if I write it like this, then how we can represent? Already we can see we are having 3, we are having 3 and 1 here, and here we are having 1 and 2. So already we are having. Now what the parallelogram law of addition of vectors says? The law states that if two co-initial vectors, these are co-vectors, initially there are two vectors, that is what is co-initial vectors, acting simultaneously, are represented by two adjacent sides of a parallelogram. So this will be the adjacent side, and for this here it will be the adjacent side, something like this. So this forms our parallelogram. Now it will be more clear. So here we can see in the graph how the vector B will move towards its adjacent side. So this is the other side of the parallelogram, and how vector A moves towards this adjacent side, as you can see. So these two adjacent sides are giving us the shape of parallelogram, and here you can see in pink the diagonal of the parallelogram represents the sum of the two vectors, and that is the resultant vector starting from the same initial point, and this is the resultant vector. So the diagonal of the parallelogram is giving us the sum of the two vectors. Now friends, why did I bring this thing into the picture? As I told you, if this is a matrix 3, 1, 1, 2, and if you want to find the determinant of this particular matrix, let us say this is matrix C. So determinant of C will be 3 into 2 minus 1 into 1. So this is 3 into 2 is 6, 6 minus 1, and this is equal to 5. So this 5 is determinant of C, and this entire parallelogram is telling us that the area of the parallelogram is 5. So if this is A, B, C, D, then determinant of C is AD minus BC. So this AD minus BC is this particular parallelogram, about which I'll speak in detail when I start with determinants. So this is how I wanted to link vectors with the concept of determinants. So in my next class we'll be taking up determinants. So friends, till my next class, take care of yourself, and thank you very much for being with me, for being with Understanding Economics with Professor Aftab. Thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, please share and subscribe the channel. Thank you.